Goodwin here, back to review The Boys episode 5. And I do a review of The Boys every week after the episode drops. Maybe not always dropping on the same day as the episode, but usually the day after. With that said, let's talk about The Boys episode 5. This episode was absolutely hilarious in all the right places. It was a bit out there in your face with its twisted sense of humor, and there are all kinds of things to take into account here. But it was also fairly good in getting the boys back on track to where they need to be, where they need to head, and figure out how to balance the dynamic correctly. And now that all those parts are in place, things are looking up because we're 5 episodes in, and the boys haven't really been a crew. They have just been this divided, butting heads group that's not really even of course, that's what they were always, but they've just been so different agendas this season. And we're this deep into the season, so I'm really interested in seeing them operate as a cohesive unit moving forward, and I feel like this episode did well to serve that agenda. Now, on the other side of things, I once again, the VOT side of things is a lot more interesting, and it is just so much more entertaining because it's just all this stuff, the rising tensions between Maeve and Homelander, the way he keeps trolling her for being a lesbian, and just there's so many parodies of our society, of our reality in here. You had them making fun of the Justice League with the whole 7 filming of this movie that they've been teasing pretty much the whole season, and it's just absolutely hilarious because they do poke fun of Joss Whedon. They do have their own parody of the Infinity Stones. Homelander's comments about girls get it on, and she's like, no, girls get it done. That it's just absolutely hilarious, the things in here. And there's that girl power moment that I felt like was a direct jab at Avengers Endgame. It's just hilarious. And then you have that stuff with the Deep and the Church of the Collective and that cheesy, silly commercial. Just so much of this stuff reflects our reality that it's absolutely hilarious. So they did show Lamplighter, the guy that played Iceman, is supposed to be playing Lamplighter, and it's kind of funny. Lamplighter is fire-based. He played Iceman, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that character because we haven't had that character. We've had a lot of little snippets of talk about that character and what he's done, and apparently Stormfront's got connections to him, and it feels like she manipulated him, and she just manipulates everybody. Like you can see her already planting the seeds to manipulate Starbright, and she's already in this episode. She makes her efforts to get Homelander on her page, and she just got everybody where she wants them. And I still have so many questions about what they're doing with this version of the character, where they're taking it, because why was she just out of the loop for so long and then brought back to the front lines at this particular moment in time? And is she just like some kind of I just have so many questions about that character because if she's there to get them all back on track, but her feelings towards other races and stuff just make me wonder why, particularly considering who the CEO is, the Gustavo Fring type character, considering that he's a man of color, and she is who she is. It's just really a puzzle to wonder why they would bring her back out there unless she manipulated. We can see that she's a master manipulator, so maybe she manipulated them too into letting her back out there, and she's got her own agenda to take over everything. But I don't know. I'll have to wait and see. I don't have a lot of I just have more questions than anything close to an answer when it comes to that character. But I'm very curious to see what they do with Lamplighter, because obviously they're going to be using him more moving forward. But the tensions between Maeve and Homelander, where they lead, where they escalate to, I think that's going to be quite interesting. That she went to the deep, and they sort of had this offer. It's it's quite interesting, and Butcher's aunt is pretty hilarious. Um, yeah, at first you think she's just this sweet old lady, but she's got such a foul mouth, and she's got all that stuff beneath her house. And what happens to her house, I was kind of shocked that she didn't complain about it. Also, it felt like it was really unnecessary to blow apart her house, because these guys are familiar enough with Black Noir to know that this stuff isn't going to slow him down. Um, but the whole Black Noir stuff, finally getting him in this kind of big scene, but he is ultimately just a puppet of Gustavo Fring. That's just absolutely hilarious in my opinion, and I can really see what they're going to be. I can now really. It's becoming clearer what they're going to do with the Black Noir character. Um, but one of the best things in here, despite the weird, awkward, hilarious sex that's also equally off-putting between Homelander and Stormfront, just the marketing stuff towards Maeve and her girlfriend, and it shows the true colors of Hollywood and the way they treat these kinds of things. And there's so much talk about this kind of representation and stuff throughout the episode, and you can see how they really handle representation and stuff. It's it's all about marketing. It's all about marketing this stuff. It's not really about being supportive of it or anything. It's just about how's the best way to market it. It's just little things in here. And Homelander had so many things to deal with this episode, and I really thought he was going to go too far, and he started having his little panic. It's a look at things to come, and a pretty great look at things to come, because it was pretty horrific. But once he gets on board with Stormfront, and she starts showing him how to manipulate the public with social media, and his points go back up, and it feels to me, because we all know Stormfront is much older, it feels to me like this just fits perfectly into Homelander's mommy issues, because she's much older than him, and it's quite disturbing them two getting on this way, and neither one of them have to hold back in this situation either, which is something that I can see just Homelander just embracing, and he did this. He really embraced. There's just a lot of weird stuff going on here. If I do have one complaint about the episode, usually I do a best, then a personal bias, and then a worse. But for this episode, I just, there's just so much good here. What they did with Kamiko's character, the level of brutality, that was pretty. It was awesome and horrific, and you kind of want her to get back on track, but it's interesting to see her like this. And Frenchie, to F you, like, that stuff was pretty great. I'm very curious to see what's going to go on with Frenchie, but Mother's Milk really had the leadership on this one. He's maintained that all season long, like the way these three get on board together. Yeah, the boys are back in town. It really feels like that now. No more my negatives about the episode. Butcher's attitude, this kind of give up, defeatist attitude, and everything he accused Huey being is what he was being. It's just whiny and loser defeatist type. But now we're back, and Huey understands the dynamic of how to keep Butcher, how to keep Butcher on board and how to keep him from going too far. So I thought it was a really great episode. That my negatives about the episode were pretty much just Butcher, being a little bit too unlike Butcher for me, and just kind of wanting to give up. And while I think it's absolutely hilarious, I do have to question why Black Noir was hiding on a rooftop and practically plain sight for hours, just waiting there, spying on Butcher. It's hilarious, but I also have to question, is this realistic? However, Black Noir is somebody who does some really strange, kind of funny things. He has his own sense of humor. So, I mean, this might have been for his own joy and amusement. I can't say for sure, but I just thought it was interesting. So, moving forward, it looks like Maeve's really going to be going against Homelander, and Homelander and Starbright. They're really set up to be manipulated by Stormfront. Stormfront has the capability to manipulate everybody, and it became really clear this episode that she's just naturally got that down. And I think they're all going to be used without realizing. I think she's already got a Starbright where she wants her, and she's going to use her just like she's using Homelander now. So that's going to be interesting to see where they go with this. But I do want to highlight that little Homelander doll, too, that the Butcher gave to his dog to Screw. That's hilarious. And I've heard that there was similar but more disturbing stuff like that in the book. Moving forward, I do have to say that what happened to A-Train, it really sucks for him. And he did have a moment with Stormfront where her racist views almost came out, and I think he could feel that tension. Just the way they handled tension in this episode, rising tension between all these different groups, all these different characters, dynamics. It really sold me. It was a really tense episode, and it didn't go too far, but it did go just far enough to be really twisted and in a hilarious, absolutely hilarious way. The whole episode feels like a mockumentary. With that said, I would give this episode a solid 7 out of 10. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. Comment down below anything I may have missed, anything that you may be aware of that I didn't highlight, anything that you really enjoyed about the episode, anything you really didn't like about the episode. I'm curious about everybody's thoughts and feelings on this one. Be a good one here. Eventually we will. Consider subscribing. Consider smashing that like button. And until next week, I'll see you when I do my next review of The Boys.